All right. So this is what we'll be making tonight, and I will show you different ways to use your washi tape and your alphas, your screens, a couple art mediums. You know me, I've always tried to bring in new techniques or different ways to use the same techniques over, because sometimes you can use a technique and it gets very dull after a while. So I try to give you kind of a different way to use them. So that's what we're going to be making. Now here is the original album, and this is a Prima album. It is ancient back in the day when they first started. So you may have a hard time coming across these at all, but I wanted to show you the basic construction of these. That way if you want to try it, you can definitely make your own. And I suggest the Prima cardboard. If you know a store that orders from Prima, go stalk them, and when they get a new order in, steal their cardboard, because honestly, Prima's boxes for some reason rock for this. This is an MDF, and it's an MDF album, and what they did was they took an heavy duty tape and they cut a smaller piece. They cut the piece off and just taped it so that it has a nice way of opening, and the back is the same. You can see here as well. So that's the basic construction of these. So if you can't get these, you can use the techniques that I'm going to show you on any of our mixed media albums. Same with, you can create your own, like I'd said. And basic construction is just 2 pieces of the same material, and use a really heavy duty industrial tape or duct tape. Of course, cool duct tape out there. You can use the duct tape to connect the 2 pieces together. Okay. But you can make it out of chipboard, or you could use canvas. Now the thing that I'm using would work really well with the Prima Mixed Media inserts, the albums. So we can put that in there. What I used on the inside of my other one was I used some of our A4 pattern papers. So you could definitely add A4 papers or watercolor papers. So you could definitely mix and match those together. Okay. Any kind of album will work. Yes, let me show you Anna's. Anna's journal would work perfect for this technique and for this project. Show you this. Okay. I love this album. Anna did a really good job designing it. This is the inside of it. Most of you have seen it probably, but give you a view of it. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First, what I did was I went ahead and pulled it apart so that I could work on my surfaces at the same time without working around anything. So let's move some of our little supplies out of the way. Okay, so we have our front and our back, and just kind of remember which one your front and your back is. So this is going to be my front, so let's go ahead and just mark it. This will go away because we're going to cover it, but I just want to make sure. So the basic supplies you're going to need is some type of album. Anna's album is perfect for this. The canvas album, any type of mixed media album you create or find will work with this techniques we're going to use. So for Prima's product, we're going to use the album. We're going to use some different tapes. We're going to use some of the fabric tapes. And we're going to use some of the washi tapes. A lot of people go, well, what do I need washi tapes for? You all need washi tapes. Okay. So, and we also are going to be using some of the wood pieces. These are from Anna's line as well, from the Sunrise Sunset collection. We're going to be using different alphabets. And you can use, this is a really good project to use some of those leftovers that you have, or if they've lost the stickiness off the back, you can kind of mix and match different, darn white, you can mix and match different fonts and sizes to do this as well. I'm also going to show you, I cut up this mat, or mask I should say, and I'm going to cut up a few other pieces out of this one mask. So that's another different way you can utilize your masks. You can, I buy two. I keep one full size and the other one I'll cut bits and pieces out of. So when I'm working on a small project like this where I need to kind of fit it into places, it makes it a little bit easier. Okay. Also, of course, we have our little flowers. I'm going to be using these. These are the Cassie and Periwinkle. These are some of the flowers I created for Prima. This is that teal one in the middle. We're also going to be using these lovely little yellow guys right here. This is Jillian and Lemon. And we will be using, oh, where did they go? That's art thing again. I'll have to find them in a bit. Okay, so I will grab those in a second. We'll also be using the Ruby Violet bracelet for closure. A lot of stuff. So let's go and get started. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is a heavier base gesso. Now there's different thicknesses of gesso. Gesso basically is a primer. It's a primer for canvas, wood, paper, doesn't matter. What it is it's a base coat for your art surfaces before you use different art mediums on it. Now this one is Claudine Helmuth's Studio Gesso from Ranger. This is a thicker, heavier base. Now you could also find gesso, of course, at Michael's or your craft store. And I have Liquitex. This is what I usually use for larger projects. This is a more fluid-based gesso. So I would have to put on a couple more coats. It depends on the quality. You have what's called a school quality or academic quality. You have artist quality, and then you have professional. So there are different levels of gesso. My suggestion, if you're going to be just doing regular basic crafts, get the academic. If you're just going to add it here and there, get the academic. Don't waste your money on the really high-end stuff. Now, if you're going to do some finer art or you're going to do like a mixed media where you want a lot of texture, I would step up to more of the professional, heavier based gesso. Okay? Alrighty. So now I'm going to use a brush for this one because I do want to have some type of brush stroke in the paint once it goes down. That way when I put my spray over the top, the texture of the gesso will show up. Now I don't wash my brushes very well, as you can see. Make sure you wash your brushes. Alright. So I'm just going to go straight on to here. Okay. I try to make long, even strokes once I get the paint down. That way, I'm not going to cover the paint or the tape all the way because I'm just going to cover it with more washi tape and different tapes anyways. But back to my paint strokes. I make long, even strokes all the way down so that even though it does have a texture, the texture's uniform. Alright. If you go back and forth, it gets a little choppy and just doesn't look as nice as if you go from top to bottom and back and forth. Okay. Doesn't have to be solid. I just want a nice even coat. Because again, we're going to take some paints over the top of it. Okay. Gesso will stick to your clothes, just a warning. If you do get it on your clothing, make sure you wipe it off immediately because it does not wash off once it dries. It is very prominent. It is a water-based, but once it's dry, it's dry. It's not going anywhere. Okay. The white is going to kill my lighting. I can already tell right now. Let's see if this helps a little bit. A little. Okay. Just keep going with the paint. Doo-doo. Okay. Alright. Yeah, Prima needs to make bib aprons, because that's where the mess happens. We just like sit there and wipe it on our chest and then realize we wiped it on our shirt. I've done that more than once. Alrighty, so I have a nice even coat. I like the little paint strokes in there. Some of you may not, but for this project, it does kind of add to the design. Now, if you want a really nice even coat when using gesso, you can do one coat, and then what I like to do is I'll brayer my second coat on. So I'll put some gesso onto the project and brayer it across. And if you're asking what a brayer is, where are my brayers? I think I left them at the studio at art. I left a lot of stuff at Prima, I know that. Okay. What I do is brayer it over the top and it'll create a smoother surface, all right? Okay, so now I'm going to have to take the heat gun to it real quick just to kind of set it. I don't want it completely dry, or I don't need it completely dry. Now, gesso won't take very long to dry because it is a base coat paint. There's not a lot of moisture in the paint to start with. So it will dry fairly quickly. Alright. Now before you let it dry, you could take like a little stick. This is kind of dry, but you could take a little stylus tool or like a tip of a brush and kind of add little designs to it. You can't really see that, but I kind of cut into the paint a little bit. Just have fun with it. Something a little different, you know. Alright. Now this is my first base coat. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and add my alphabets. Now that I have a base coat down, I'm going to add my alphabets. And the first coat of gesso, what it'll do, it's tacky, so it'll help keep my alphas in place in case, you know, the adhesive doesn't quite work exactly as you'd like it. The gesso will help kind of hold those in place. So there is no real rhyme nor reason. I do like to pull out letters for maybe one or two little words. Like I pulled out the letters for love in the center. You can just mix and match the rest of them just to add a little depth and texture to the page. Kind of creates a nice little focal point to carry your eyesight across the page. We start it down here and then it kind of lingers up towards the top corner. Alright, so it carries your eye across. So I'm just going to pull different letters and numbers and just place them down. Kind of place them. You want to make sure they don't slip because we're going to put another little coat of gesso over the top of these to kind of blend them all together. Okay. Again, I just kind of fiddle with the design. Nothing exact. Sorry about the lighting, you ladies and gents. My camera is awesome high quality, but for some reason it really just does not like the lighting in here when we hit the white projects. You know what I mean? Okay, let's do this one here. Sorry if they're not straight. I'm doing them upside down, so I'm going to make this one a little bit different. And I'm going to be putting it up for grabs on my Facebook page. So I'll put a link on Live with Prima, and when you girls, gents, can put your name down for it if you like. Alright. the longest part, I promise. This is the most time-consuming, tedious part of it, is just finding the letters, because I do kind of like placing them into, you know, in a row. Okay. I like making them somewhat uniform. Kind of working a little puzzle in a way. Okay. Let's start bringing them over a bit. Like that. Nope. Put this there. Da 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 da. I'm hurrying. I know, we only got an hour. Come on now, Jamie. Let's scoot this over here. And let's see if I have the letters for love still on my board. I don't think I do, but let's make it up, huh? Let's see. L-O-V-E. V. O. My computer's kind of on the other side of the desk, so if you guys have questions, tell Carrie. And she can text me. I should spell Carrie? You want me to spell Carrie? That means you'd get it. Why would somebody else want your name? How about I love Carrie hidden in the words? Okay. I've got this little opening here and it's bugging me. There we go. And let's do these. Never going to be the same, but kind of mess around with the letters. I do. My Prima girls. Wouldn't know what to do without them. I'd probably go insane. Alright, last letter, I promise. Okay. So I got them pretty down. Well, a couple of them might shift once I start with the paint over the top of them again, but we'll see once we get to that point. Okay, so we have alphabets on our little cover. Easy peasy. This is, again, is a nice little technique to use when you have a lot of leftovers. I'm going to set the back aside for now. And I'm going to put more gesso on the top. Let's see if we can bring my... Yay, my light came back. Take my brush, make sure that I have all the water out of it because I don't want to saturate the cover. And just dab your gesso right over the top, kind of goopy looking. Kind of gob it in there. I want to make sure all the little nooks and crannies are filled. And that's another reason this studio gesso is nice for this technique, is because it's heavier based. So we'll keep a little bit of its dimension when you layer it like this. Some of the thinner ones won't do that. And you got to kind of brush in all four directions while doing these so that you get all the way around the alphabets. And then we'll clean up the edges once we are done getting the paint in there. So all four directions. Up, down, side to side. Okay. Just want to make sure you got even little coat covering all of those. And the gesso will also help them stay in place, almost like a little adhesive once it's all dry. It'll keep them in place. Okay, so now that I can smooth out my little paint. All right. Yes, if you, of course, most of you aren't going to have this. We're suggesting that you use the new craft journal by Anna Dabrowska. This one. You can do the same technique on, okay? All right. So a little bit more in here. And then I'm going to have to hit it with the heat gun one more time, just to make sure it's not too goopy. It doesn't have to be completely dry. I just want it to stay in place because we're going to get it wet again anyways with some spray. All right. So let's bust out the heat gun. Get in all those little areas, because some of these, like the O's and the G's, they've got a pool of gesso in there, so I want to make sure that I dry it really well. And hit in there. Yeah. I didn't add the other letters, I should have, but you can. It would look really neat with the, because some of the letters barely have any dimension to them. So if you included some of those in there, with the different depth and the different size, it would make a really fun texture. Alright, so I have basically, I don't want to get it too hot because it'll start bubbling. But we have, for the most part, it all dry. You didn't miss much. So basically, so far what I've done, okay, light back. What I've done is I took my piece, my background, put a layer of gesso down, I semi-dried it to tackiness, and then I added my alphabets on top. This is a great way to use up your leftover alphabets, different shapes, sizes. Then I put another coat of gesso just to make them uniform. In case you're using different colors of alphabets, the gesso will help make those look uniform. And then I went ahead and dried it again. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a spray, and I have to find it. Is it dry? Yeah, it's dry. Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do first, before I grab my spray, is I'm going to add a little bit of my little screen that I got going here. Here's my spray. Grab it before I forget it. My favorite paint at the moment, the Silks by Luminart. Splash of color. And my handy little makeup sponge. And what I did was I took my larger screen, this bigger screen, and I cut some of the pieces out. And I just had my little piece that I had already cut. Let's see. Here it is. So I cut a piece out, so I didn't have to worry about messing around all my alphabets. So I cut a nice little piece of the pattern out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it down onto my background. And the reason why I'm doing this first is because I'll show you this cool little way you can lighten up the paint with your spray. So I'm going to put some down. It doesn't have to be too dark, too heavy, because you could always add more. Start light when you're using the screens, and when you're dabbing and spraying paint. Start light, and you can always add more, okay? Because what happens if you add too much paint, you could see on the center one, the paint spread underneath the screen. But if you start out lightly and add layers of color, it won't do that, all right? So I'm going to do this in a couple spots. Let's cut out a couple more pieces of our screen. Like this set right here is a nice little trio. So So I'm just going to go right here. This is more for when you're using paints or your chalk inks and you're not going to be spraying a lot. This is an ideal little technique to use. Let's see. Let's try this little trio right here as well. Of course, if you're spraying, you'll have a lot of overspray, but for your chalk inks, your regular pan pastels, dabbing paint, this is a really ideal way to use your screens. And again, I'll buy two and I'll cut one up and then I'll utilize the second one this way. So let's add this one down here. I'm going to add a little more paint. Now, because this is a water-based acrylic paint, what will happen when I spray over the top is it'll dilute these little triangles and just give it a ghost appearance in the background. It won't be quite as bold, and that will help us build layers by doing so. Okay, so there's our second little set. And then I'm going to do a nice little one over here. We're going to be covering a lot of this up here, but kind of place it there. Don't need a whole lot of paint. Dab, dab, dab. All right. And the color on that was Ginger Peach. Okay. Ginger Peach was that paint color. Move these out of the way. And now I'm going to go ahead and spray it. Let me grab my spray towel. I use old dish towels to kind of keep my mess from spreading too much. I can throw them in the wash and reuse them. So I'm going to go ahead and spray over the top. The color I'm using is Heidi Swapp's Color Shine in Georgia Peach. And I'm going to spray over the entire thing. Okay. And you can see how the paint's separating. I kind of like that. The reason why it's doing that is because of the different, probably the oils in some of your hands or the paints pull up to the surface and ends up doing that. It dilutes it almost. So what I'm going to do towards the top is I'm going to tip this down and I am going to take Ranger's Perfect Pearls Mist in Perfect Pearl, and I'm just going to spray it so that it'll run towards the bottom. Okay. I'll spray a little bit more of this one. It looks really orange in the video, but it's not that orange. The color I'm using looks exactly like the picture that I showed the other day. Alright, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my heat gun and kind of help out the color a bit. The color on the spray again is Georgia Peach. And this one was Perfect Pearl. So I'm just going to run this down towards the bottom. Like so. What I'm going to do now is I am going to take my towel, I'm going to dab some of this off, and I'm just going to pull some of this color across. Okay. If you pull too much off, you can always add more, but I'm just kind of taking this down the page like so. You can see how the paint settles into our alphabets and makes them stand out more. I'm going to add a little bit more. I know you're like, why did you just do that? But I'm going to go ahead and dry that. Add a little bit of our yellow in there as well, or ginger that we use. And just keep kind of layering it, okay? Dry, and then kind of wipe some of the excess off. All right. Okay. Make sure you dry around the alphabets. Okay. Pretty dry. It's going to take a while to dry it. But layering the colors like that gives it kind of a weathered look. What I did was I sprayed some on there, blended it out, and gave it a base coat of color between the spray and our ginger peach. So I added the first layer. Then what I did was I dried it. So some of it sat there, and I wiped it down and moved it into the texture of our gesso and our alphabets. Then I went ahead and added more, and you could see that I added and added. And what that does is slowly added layers of paint instead of making a big, huge splatter. It gave it kind of a subtle effect. All right, so this is our cover. Now, as you can see, it is going to be different than the original because it is hard to, create. You can even add more paint and splatter it. Each one's going to be different. Now that we have our base paint down, I'm going to go back in and add more of our little, I'm going to dry it a little bit more because it's still wet to the touch. And it's pulling off with my finger tip. So just our little workable area out here. I'm going to dry it real fast because I don't want this to come up. The alphabets can dry on their own, so we're really not going to touch them much. This right here we will, but I'll mess with them in a bit. Okay, so now we get to add more layers. I am going to add some of our little triangles. This has been a fave of mine. You could see one of my favorite screens lately. So let's go ahead, plop that down, and we're going to add more paint. Okay. Just dab it on. If you get a little over, just kind of take your finger and wipe it off. Alright. Down here, I'm going to do the same. Now this is why I cut the pieces, so that I could fit it into smaller areas like I am between those alphabets, or if you have like a second thought of adding it later on to a layout or a card, you have a more workable size that you can kind of squeeze into between flowers and things like that. Alright, and then we'll take the biggies up here, over here. My paint came off the tape. You can use regular acrylic paint for this as well. I use the silks because they have a nice pretty shimmer to them. Gives it kind of an extra little pop. right. One little more, and then I think we've got enough. The arrows help direct. The arrows actually help direct with your composition. The reason for that, because it does, is because when we think of arrows in our brain, we think of following in that direction, correct? We see an arrow, we have to follow which direction it's going. So by placing arrows up and down across my book, it's directing our eye line and our eyesight to every part of the cover. Alrighty. Okay, so there is our cover right now. Put those away. We don't need that right now. Next, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use our chalk inks. Now, the color I used was the teal. Let's see, is it this one? Cold Ice? I think it is. Yeah. So we're going to use Cold Ice and Turquoise Stone. We're going to use both of them, I think. And with the Cold Ice, what I did was I took this little mask. It was released last year, CHA. I don't have the item number on it with me. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take our little chalk ink, and this is the Cold Ice, and I'm going to just take it in the corner right over here. Let's flip it over. Like that. Just going to place that in the corner, and I'm sticking to my masks, and I'm just going to dab right over the top of it. Okay. Now the chalk inks are great because they have a lot of moisture, they have a lot of ink in them, and they can go onto any surface. Once this is dried, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay. So I'm just going to add a couple other little spots. Don't need a lot. I just want to add a little more color. Again, pulling your eyesight across the page, keeping it interesting. I really like this Cold Ice color. It's really pretty. I got a little too much ink on that one. You can see it blurred, but we're going to cover it with flowers anyways. All right. So to help the triangle stand out a little more, I have a pen. You can use any black pen. This is the Slick Writer by American Crafts, so you can use anything that'll paint on wood. This one gets a little testy on the wood, or on the paint, so I would just kind of pick and choose what you use. Alrighty. You could also use the Faber-Castell pens with the same technique, and it'll work really well. I'm just helping our little triangle stand out. Adding the black will help draw the eye as well. It's a nice, just subtle enhancement. My pin's not working. Da, 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 da. And let's go ahead and just use one of these guys. Good old Sharpie. Good old Sharpie. A little thicker than I wanted, but that's okay. Go over. Doesn't have to be exact. That's really dark, but we'll live with it, yeah? I'll give the original away. Now I'm going to bring in this blue that we added on here by adding it to our wood pieces as well. And this time I'm going to use the turquoise stone just to give it a tiny bit different color tone. And you can color straight onto the wood pieces, which is really nice with the chalk inks. They're a really good price. And they go on everything. Just use it on top of paint and gesso, and then I went ahead and used it straight onto the wood as well. So very versatile. Color these. Da, da. The little dudes. Okay. I have a small collection of these chalk inks because I'm afraid they're going to disappear and I'll never be able to get them again. And they're kind of a must-have because I use them with pretty much everything. So let's go ahead and glue this down. Had to go bust out a new bottle of fabric tack. Just going to place it over here in the corner. Starting to add our layers. Layers, layers, layers. Okay. And then our little guys are going to go the opposite direction, like we talked about earlier. Before I add my flowers, I'm going to go ahead and place my washi tape and our fabric tape down. Now the cool part about the washi tape is it's very thin. It doesn't have a lot of bulk to it, so you can layer it on top of each other without creating too much depth. Okay, so I have this paint and I can see where my tape's gone, so I'm going to go right up against my tape border to kind of hide and camouflage that. And this is another great way to camouflage bindings on a book. I'm just going to kind of layer these here and there in pieces to break up the design. Kind of give it that, I don't know, eclectic look. The handmade, this reminds me of like the 60s, 70s type designs. The colors and just the mix of different patterns and shapes. I'm going to bring out the, what is it called? Can't remember. My brain's fried today, I think. Too much heat. For sure, too much heat. Okay. Pull off moa, moa, moa. Moa, moa, moa. You can see I'm layering them on top. I need another one. Let's see. We'll put that one aside for now. Let's bring out a piece of our fabric tape. This is the writer's gaffer tape that Prima has. Comes in different sizes and different finish. This is the linen tape. I'm going to go ahead and place this down over here. And you can mix this with the washi tape as well. Kind of blend the textures together. Just here and there. Little bits and pieces. Okay. Yeah, I've never had any problems with the washi tape, Prima's washi tape lifting. They pretty much stay in place. Some, if you're using it on a moist background, like if it's wet from spraying it or painting it, sometimes they will lift from the moisture, but for the most part, they stay planted pretty well. Let's add more of this one down here. I just like mixing and matching. I had more colors on the original, but that's okay. Okay. So I hid the seam of the original binding really well, It just gives it an extra little fun feel to it by using the washi tapes. Gives it kind of a youthful look, and sometimes you just want a fun little finish on your piece. And it's very easy. You just poke right through it with a needle or hole punch. Open that hole up so you can use the, there it is, whatever you need to puncture the hole with. Okay. Oh, I shouldn't have stabbed through that one. Now, if you want a good hard grip with your tape, go ahead and take the bone fold of your distressing tool, your Prima Comfort Craft tool, and go ahead and run it down your washi tape. And what this will do is it'll help set that into the background of the surface. So you just want to run that down. Make sure you get it all into the crevices, especially if you have a seam like this one has a seam. Bend the seam up and go ahead and press that down, and what it'll do is it'll fit into that seam so that it won't lift up every time you're bending it. Okay, so we have that. Now on my cover you can see that I kind of highlighted the love letters that I had put on there. I'm going to take the turquoise or whatever, some type of contrasting color, and I'm just going to go in and chalk over just those letters. Okay, so that they stand out among the rest. You can make a little saying. You do this on a layout or a mixed media wall hanging canvas. Put a bunch of alphas over the front of the canvas like we did here, and then pull out certain letters or certain words like love and joy and happiness or family, and you could do that all the way across the whole canvas like this. And the size of the little chalk inks are perfect for going in and filling in just those little alphas that you want. Okay. Alrighty, so next what we're going to do is we're going to add our little bracelet as our closure. I'm gonna kind of hurry up because I'm taking forever. Thank you. Alright, so here's our little bracelet. I used the yellow one on the original. I don't think I have another yellow. Let me check one more spot real quick. I think I only have pink. Oh wait, here's one. Ah, it's pink too. Darn it. Darn it, darn it. Ooh, I have a yellow. Oops. Oops. Okay, I have a yellow. I had a piece of closure on there. Let's just use this color. Not my favorite, you guys. Meh. I once had like thousands of these bracelets, and now I have none of them. Oh well. So I'm just going to use the pink one. The one I'm going to give away on my Facebook page will be the original. It takes more time to put effort in the original. But let's go ahead and use this one. It kind of matches the background color that we used. And what I did was I cut right behind our little snap area, right across, like so. So we could put it into our little area where our alphas are. Looks like it's meant to be there. And then I'm going to take some thread. You could take some thread and thread the edge. You just kind of loop stitch it around the edge. I'll go ahead and do it real quick. You can use embroidery thread or yarn or whatever you have handy. Baker's twine. And I'm just going to take it. What is that? Can you show the original again when you get a chance? Yeah. I'm going to stab myself here. Now these bracelets are great because you can stitch through them. You can poke holes in them with the hole punch, which I'm going to do in a minute. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to loop stitch around the edge just to give it a finished look. You could also put perfect pearl or the pearls, the satin crystals along the edge as well if you'd like, if you don't like sewing at all, which some of us don't, and I don't blame you, because I just lost my needle and thread. Darn it. Darn it! There it goes. And I use my table to push it through because that's better than me stabbing myself. You know what I mean? Oh, what did I do here? There it goes. A couple more stitches. And a thimble works good when you're sewing by hand as well. I got a little Prima project I'm working on that I'm doing sewing on. You guys will have to wait till the end of the month. So now that I got to the end, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little thread and run it right behind my other loop just to finish it off. It doesn't have to be a complete finish because I'm going to glue it down anyways. So I'm just going to cut my excess off like so that we could glue it down. Now here's the original again. You can see the original, how I loop stitched the end and then I just glued it down flat, so it wasn't going anywhere. It's there. And again, I use the fabric tack, so everything I use is with the fabric tack on this. But we are gonna go ahead and glue that down in place. Use a generous amount. It doesn't have to be like oozing, but just make sure the surface has a nice even thin coat, especially something like this that's going to get a lot of movement and wear because you'll be opening and closing it. You want to make sure it has a nice even bed of glue on that. Okay, so you can see right there. Now on the back, what we'll do, I didn't paint the back of this one yet, but on the back what you'll do is the same thing. Is just, you can finish the edge if you'd like. If not, you can just glue it down onto the back cover. So I'll set that aside for the back. I don't think we're going to get to finishing the back, but the same idea with the paint background is what we're going to do, or what I'll do to finish the back. All right, so with our little piece, I'll stamp it so you can see it. We're going to go ahead and start embellishing. Okay. Okay, we're going to use these little flowers, and these are from the Divine, I believe the Divine collection. And what I did was, I pulled some of the leaves off of the flowers. Aren't these great? I love these flowers. These are one of my favorites. I got a ton of them. They're out in my class supply box, or I'd go grab more. But what I do is I pull some of the leaves off, just a couple. Let's see. Let's pull those. Okay, and we're going to spray this with the same color we sprayed our background. Gives it a nice bold pop of color, staying within the same color tone. Now see what happens. See, I wanted to show you the difference of how bold this is, spraying it straight onto our flower compared to our blending technique that we did on the cover. So you can get different looks with the same art mediums. You don't have you can have so many different possibilities with just this one art medium. I'm just gonna dab these a little bit. Don't want to bring all the color off, but I don't want to have to wait to put this on for you guys. So move my little flowers and my spray towel. Alright, so let's bring out the embellishments. guys and these guys. So these come 4 to a pack, and they look like little buds, but they can also be opened up, and they have a really cool beaded center. They did such a good job making these, like, I mean, to a T of what I showed them. It was so cool to see these made and to have them look so close to my original. Okay. To build up a little bit around my flower, I'm going to use the bottle caps from the Sunrise Sunset collection, and I'm going to use probably all 4 of these. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this silver one in place, and then I'm going to embed my little flower into it. Let's put it right here. Okay, and then I'm going to cut the stem off of this one because I don't really need it for this project. I'm going to open it up really good, and because we're setting it into a well, I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the bottom, but I'm also going to put glue right around the edge so that we can get it to stick like so. Okay. Maybe add a little bit more adhesive to the leaves that are actually touching the metal. Put it right around the edge of the metal, and that'll help keep it into place. And then we have these fun little yellow ones. These are little mums. They almost look like mums, yeah, with the glitter already on them. Tack a couple of these down. And I always start with my largest embellishment first, and then I build around that embellishment. You know what, I'm going to slide this down just a little bit. We'll go ahead and place our second little bottle cap above this guy. Like so. And add another little flower. Okay. And our nice little red orange one we just sprayed, I'm going to cut the stem off of this one as well. And then I'm just going to tuck this in next to our other piece so that it's kind of hanging out a little bit. Okay. And what I'm going to do with the petals is I'll glue them so that it looks like the flower is kind of losing its petals a little bit. And this will also help with the composition. Again, as I said earlier, you probably hear me use that word a lot, but what it does is it keeps the uniformity or the chaos, makes it make sense, you know? All right. And I also added some of these sculpted flowers by Donna Downey. These are little poppies. Really cool. I like these. I'm going to pop one off, and I'm going to place it right on the edge. Add a little bit of adhesive. Place it on the edge of our little bottle cap. And there's our little flower cluster. Man, the color looks horrible in this. Okay. What I did for the bracket, on the original, you can see I hung a couple little flowers on the edge. What I did was I took the jump rings that Prima carries, and I took 2 of the bottle caps, and I punched a hole in them. Let me grab that real fast. We're almost out of time. I don't want to run out over time, you guys. Almost. Okay, so here's our little jump rings, and what I'm going to do with my hole punch is I'm just going to punch a hole right into my bracelet. Let's make sure I got the right hole. Kind of turn it, and again it'll punch right through the fabric of our bracelet. My hole punch kind of has a bum tooth, so it doesn't always cut through. But it does, I promise, work. Okay, so we punched our little holes. We're going to take our bottle caps and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to, let's make it smaller. And we're going to punch a hole right through the edge so that I can, you want to put it towards the edge where the pattern or the ribbed edges on the bottle cap. You want to go ahead and punch a hole into the side of that so that you can run a jump ring through it. So you can see where I made the hole right here. All right. So you just take your little jump ring through that and then through the hole of your bracelet. And these are really easy. All you do is you twist them. You don't want to pull them out. You can see they're kind of corkscrewed. They're that way for a reason, so that it keeps the shape. So you just want to twist it back. And then our other little dude, did I put one through the center of this one? No, I made another hole. This one, these smaller ones, what you'll have to do is just make the holes in the center already. What you want to do is make one towards the side. So we're going to go ahead and make another little hole right against the edge, like so. See? And again, our little jump ring. Da 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 da. Push, push, push. And you have two little embellishment hangers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of the small sculpted flowers into the center of a small one. And then in our larger one, I'm going to grab one of our yellow flowers and glue it into the center. Now make sure when you glue, because there is a hole in the center, make sure there's something underneath until the glue dries, in case it the glue comes through the center of the hole. All right, so there you go. Now you can also add more screen masking layers if you'd like. You can add different colors, of course. There's so many different ways you can use these different ideas. Okay, so hi. Alrighty, so this is our project we did today. And again, if you don't have one of these, of course you probably won't, but you can use this one. Don't you love it? I love it. You could use this one by Anna. This is a really nice one because you can take it apart. Carrie used this album on her National Scrapbook Day project and create a really beautiful mixed media album. Now, if you didn't get a chance to watch us on National Scrapbook Day and you haven't watched the videos, make sure you watch them because we had a lot of fun creating those projects for you. Now, I have a little reminder. I wanted to, let me bring my computer over a bit. We have a little reminder about there you go. I lost it. Oh, where did it go? Here it is. About the art venture coming in January of next year. So, art venture next January, and the date on that is the 8th and the 9th. The 8th and the 9th of January in Anaheim, California, before the CHA, Winter CHA, Prima is going to be putting on another art venture, and it is going to be fantastic. You're going to have 6 different classes. You're going to have myself, Anna Dabrowska, Nat Calbaugh, Frank Garcia. You're going to have Lamore Weber, you're going to have Steph Miller, and we're going to have so many different classes and styles for you guys to get creative with. And you're also going to have a chance to work with some of the brand new products that CHA is going to be releasing. So make sure you check out Prima's Facebook page, or even Live with Prima's Facebook page. We have the event there. So make sure you go and check out all of the information. and sign up so you can join us in all that artistic fun. That's going to be a fun 2 days. And you know Prima, of course, is going to give you a big gift bag of Prima stuff, and the classes alone are filled with products. So make sure you check that out. And I believe that is it tonight. Again, here's the original. I wanted to show you. They always turn out better than the one we do on the class, but here's the original. You guys take a look at it one more time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me over on Facebook or here whenever you need. And I will see you back next month. And have a good night and good morning. And I'll talk to you later.